as we are about to be underway for round number 2 from Chicago. Ketter will start things off with the Sansep Citadel. Ivey with Llanowar Waste. And that is a wooded foothills for Kent, so I think we'll have a forest here in just a moment. There is a forest. The follow-up, we assume one's coming, as Kent did tap some mana. Looks a little unsure of himself. Does have a Satyr Wayfinder in hand. Maybe choosing between that and Curiated, but he'll play the Wayfinder. Turn over 4 cards here, Whisperwood Elemental among them. There's also Wooded Foothills, and it looks like a Llanowar Waste. And then a Haven of Spirit Dragon, so some real options here for Kent. He'll go with the Waste, the rest will go to the graveyard. Pass the turn back over to Ivey.
Whisperwood Elemental, another card that may be trending downward in the face of Languish.
Yeah, I could see that too.
It's not quite as hit by it as something like Fleecemane Lion or Death Dealer, but it's another card where you're paying a lot, and if your opponent has Languish, you're getting very little.
That's a good follow-up to Languish.
Yes.
That's for sure. Ken has a Thoughtseize here. We'll see an ultimate price, Fleecemane Lion, Rashasha Death Dealer, a Sorin, along with an Urborg. Let's make that 2 ultimate prices here in Ivey's hand. Remember the Open Series in Baltimore, our last one before we took a break. Andrew Boswell did win that with Obs on Aggro, really the high point of Obs on Aggro on the Open Series. A very impressive win over Chris Anderson in the finals of that tournament.
And I'm curious to see what Boswell does. If, you know, maybe we get the opportunity to see him in Richmond. I'm not sure, but he's been such a faithful soldier to Obs on Aggro, and I am worried that Languish is going to be a lot for that deck to overcome. Now, maybe only so many decks are playing Languish. Maybe you can live with it because there's only so many decks that are casting it, but that card seems very problematic.
Here's a Curiated from Ketter. We'll pass the turn back over to Ivey. Ivey will take a draw. Fleecemane Lion on the battlefield. That'll serve in for 3. See if Ketter has any interest in chump blocking. Here's an Urborg. Now it's time for a Death Dealer. Pass that turn back. Ketter already down to 14. Has dealt himself some damage with Thoughtseize and land. And then Fleecemane Lion took a hit. Here's another Wayfinder. That'll turn over some cards here. A Mountain. That's for Dragonlord Tarka.
2 copies of Wooded Foothills in the deck. A lot of this is just, you know, greasing the wheels on more cards to put in your graveyard for delve effects and so forth, and then 1 Mountain, as you mentioned, to cast Dragonlord Tarka.
You saw the follow-up there with Death Mist Raptor too. So a pretty good turn there for Kent. This is a, I don't want to call it a Satyr Wayfinder deck, but it's a really good Satyr Wayfinder deck.
Exactly. There's so many synergies kind of locked in with cards like Murderous Cut, the Dragon package on top of Haven, and Wayfinder, as you mentioned, synergizes so well with both sides of that package, putting stuff in the graveyard and also finding your Haven when you mill it over.
Ultimate price. Took care of Death Mist Raptor for now. Ivey going to sacrifice Windswept Teeth. Get a basic forest. Going to start working with that Rashasha Death Dealer now. It is interesting with a card like Languish being printed and how good it is against Obs on Aggro if it's a deck that you try to move away from or not. See, Wayfinder's going to jump in front of Fleecemane Lion.
Because you might ask, well, why would you not say the same thing about Goblins, for example?
Yep.
Because Goblins can kill on the 4th turn more reliably, and it has haste threats. And Obs on Aggro has neither of those things going on. Siege Rhino is its one kind of haste threat. And so it's just much more susceptible to a 4-mana sweeper than some of the linear beatdown decks that can either kill faster or burn someone out after the fact.
Ketter will play Death Mist Raptor. One follow up with a Curiated. There's a Haven. Pass that turn back. We have seen no dragons from Kent yet, but that's really the late game power of his deck, is the ability to cast Dragonlord Tarka or Dragonlord Dromoka and then return it with Haven and the Spirit Dragon. And it's tough for a lot of decks to be able to keep up with that in the mid to late game.
And the cost, the opportunity cost is so low. Again,
Yeah.
It's all happening off of land, so. Kent's able to find a dragon, things get very good.
Here's a Rhino. Ketter a little bit lower now, down to 7. Though no good attacks for Ivey, so all she can do is pass the turn back over to Ketter. Ketter will take a draw. Haha, a dragon. A good draw step.
Yeah. Not bad.
Dragon Lord Tarka will take care of the Fleecemane Lion and the Rashasa Death Dealer, leaving with Ivey with just the Siege Rhino, which does not match up very well against Dragon Lord Tarka.
And that's how quickly the game flipped. I mean, it looks like Brenna was in a position to start making some pretty serious attacks next turn, especially if she found land number 5 for Monstrous on the Fleecemane Lion. And now, even if she's able to answer Dragon Lord Tarka, we have a Death Mist Raptor that can answer the Siege Rhino, and things fall apart that fast. And you can't just kill the Dragon Lord Tarka because, again, there's Haven in play to get it back.
Yep. Time to rebuild. I'm going to start with Fleecemane Lion. And now Death Dealer. Pass the turn back. We'll see if Ketter wants to get aggressive with that Dragon Lord Tarka or not. He's reorganizing mana pretty quickly here. He'll play a Courser. Take a look at the top card. It's a Forest. That'll enter the battlefield. That'll gain Ketter a life. He's up to 8. Next card is another Courser. And the Dragon Lord Tarka is going to come into the red zone.
2-turn clock with Brenna at 16.
Hard to pass it up. There is land number 5. This is Sorin number 1. So this will change the game a little bit as far as life totals are concerned. Brenna's creatures will have lifelink and +1/+0, and is certainly forced to attack with at least one creature. The question is how many are going to come in.
Yeah, the problem is to stay alive in this spot, Brenna has to attack, and she doesn't have much in the way of good attacks.
Looks like Ketter has some interest in double blocking to get the Rhino off the battlefield, but also to not let any trample damage occur.
Yeah, I really like that block there from Ken. I think a lot of people would just be kind of in, you know, not thinking too hard about it and just putting the Death Mist Raptor out in front. By that block, Kent loses nothing extra and saves himself quite a bit of damage.
Top card here for Ketter is a Temple of Deceit. Looks like he's going to lead off with Courser. Now the Temple, 2 triggers. Top card is Satyr Wayfinder. See if Ketter wants to keep that or not. It's an interesting card to reveal because that's the kind of card that can mill over a dragon, which then your Haven can bring back. So I think that's actually a pretty tough decision if you're supposed to keep that or not.
Yeah, I think it is probably worse than most of the spells in this deck at this point, but not by that much.
Sure.
As you mentioned, milling over a dragon is very powerful here.
Ketter going to do a little math, see if he can attack again with Dragon Lord Tarka, or perhaps if he's supposed to attack Sorin.
Yeah, I think he's trying to see, can Brenna survive next turn if I attack this turn and the following turn and ignore Sorin?
Well, Ketter goes right towards Ivey. She's down to 4. She'll take a draw. Play a Forest. Ketter 10. It's a warn to the first tree. Sorin moves up to 6. And some creatures are going to have to attack here just to stay alive because of Dragon Lord Tarka. So here come the beatdowns. Wayfinder is going to be on chump blocking duty. And it looks like Fleecemane's going to come through.
I'm sort of curious about Kent not attacking the Sorin last turn.
Okay.
Because Brenna, with the amount of mana that she has in play, easily gains it back by plussing Sorin and then attacking with Death Dealer and Fleecemane Lion. Unless Kent's willing to block in such a way to try to choke her on mana, you know, put enough in front of Fleecemane Lion and Death Dealer where she has to choose to save one or the other, I think he may have been better served last turn taking care of Sorin and then winning the following 2 turns.
Which is something we might see this turn now as a result. Damage will come through. Some lifelink will occur.
Because Ken attacks for 8, and at the minimum, Brenna gains 7.
Yep.
And with any pumps, it's past that.
Wishboard Elemental's on top of the deck. Ketter's at 6. Ivey at 13. Here comes another Courser. There's a land to play here in Llanowar Waste. So Ketter up to 9. Yeah, this time with Dragon Lord Tarka, it might be time to actually kill Sorin.
Well, Brenna has access to all the same attacks she had last turn, plus an attack with Warden.
Yep. And a bunch of mana.
Right. So if it was borderline last turn, and she's going into the next turn with 6 mana instead of 5, which is another Death Dealer pump.
Yep, he's got to take care of Soren. Causing too much trouble. Pass that turn back. Ivey. We'll make the Warden a little bit bigger. We'll go up to level 1. Ivey will untap, and it'll be time to draw. We'll see what's next here in just a moment.
I think Brenna picked up a copy of Valorous Dance, and I think now maybe searching for a way to finagle it where, you know, is there a way for me to kill Dragon Lord Atarka inside of combat, for Kent not to have enough mana left over to get it back and recast it in 1 turn, and for me to make my creatures large enough or monstrous, my Fleece Maiden Lion, so the follow-up of the recast isn't so bad for me.
There's a triple block on the Warden by 3 coursers. Caryatid's going to jump in front of the Death Dealer. A lot of mana being tapped right now. There's a Death Dealer pump. Warden's going to bite the dust. Can't overcome those 3 coursers. Anything else to be done this turn? Nope, just has to pass the turn back. Ketter will untap. We know that Wishbone Elemental's on top of the deck, so that'll be the draw. Next card down.
I'm assuming that's a Nissa,
Yep.
new checklist card.
For a moment there, I thought that was new altar,
Yep.
but it is the new checklist
Really
card.
obnoxious to have altars on week 1. I mean, we're still learning. We're still learning the cards, right? I hope that's not what's going on, but I assume that's a new checklist card for Nissa.
Yep.
2 copies of Nissa in Kent's main deck.
There's Wishbone Elemental. Here comes Dragon Lord Tarkin into the red zone. Ivey's going to go down to 5. And then we'll see something else here in just a moment. You have to imagine. No, Valorous Dance will take care of the Whispered Elemental, so no Nissa going to be joining the party. Ivey will take a draw. Gonna need some way to kill Dragon Lord Targa, obviously, or this game is over.
And even if she is able to find an answer, that's only step 1.
It is temporary. Yep, no answer, and that's going to get the job done. Ken Ketter's going to win game number 1 here over Brenna Ivey. Green-Black Dragons up a game here over Abzan Aggro as we get ready for the sideboards here. We'll find some interesting cards here in the sideboard for Ivey and her Abzan Aggro deck. We've got a God's Willing, a Boon Satyr, a Tasker of the Golden Fang, 2 Ultimate Price, a Valor Stance, 2 Wingmate Rot, 2 Hunt the Hunter, 2 Thoughtseizes, and 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow. Drown, a card I expect to be very popular this weekend.
Yeah, I think Brenna needs to be able to interact with Kent's top end without slowing herself down too much. So I like the 2 copies of Thoughtseize to that end. I think the Valorous Stance is reasonable as well. You've seen Whispered Elemental, and of course, Ken has quite a few dragons as well. I actually don't mind Boon Satyr in this matchup. I'm not quite sure what matchup it's here for, but it lines up well against a lot of Kent's early blockers. It can attack through it can attack through Satyr Wayfinder, and it can attack through Sylvan Caryatid, which is a pretty nice feature. And later on in the game, it's potentially, essentially a haste threat. I think the 1 Tassiker can come in as well.
What do we see for Mr. Ketter?
Dragon Lord Slumgar, Dragon Lord Dramoka, another copy, Nissa's Revelation, 1 copy of Ugin, 2 Duress, 2 Drown Sorrow, 2 Languish, 2 Gaia's Revenge, 3 copies of Ultimate Price, 2 copies of Languish, absolutely coming in this matchup.
Yes.
And I think Dragon Lord Dramoka and Slumgar are both fine threats against Abzan Aggro.
I think this is a matchup, especially with the Languishes in the sideboard, that probably favors Ken.
Ken is just really good at blocking and then can put together an awesome top end. And Abzan Aggro is not particularly fast, so the chump blocking really matters a lot. And the top end is going to be good enough to get the job done most of the time.
Well, these players are going to shuffle up for game number 2. We'll watch more Obs on Aggro and Green Black Dragons here in just a moment, but we'll very quickly talk about the Star City Games newsletter. It's been revamped, and it is your source for Magic the Gathering news.
Exactly. This list is cultivated by Cedric Phillips, content coordinator, commentator. So you get to see the best of the Open series. You get to see match of the week, exclusive deck lists and advice from some of your favorite premium writers like Todd Anderson, Brian Bronwyn, Brad Nelson all contribute. And you can catch up on all the recent events and an exclusive cardboard crack comic. You can sign up right now for free at starcitygames.com/newsletter.
There's that F word again.
Free.
Free. The best kind. It's my favorite one.
The only cost to you is your time, with which you are not doing anything significant with anyway. So
totally true.
Essentially,
totally
free.
free. Yeah. Because really,
the opportunity cost of you going to the website is, let's be honest, basically zero.
Yeah, pretty low. What else would you be doing anyway?
Exactly. The cat video will be there when you get back. So there's no reason not to do it.
What is the card you want to see cast this weekend the most from Magic Origins? Is there any card that you want to really see in action?
I mean, honestly, Goblin Pile Driver.
Okay.
To me, it's unclear whether or not Goblins is better than just mono red aggro or Tarka red, because you have to play a couple stinky Goblins to make it happen, and the tribal payoff is basically just Pile Driver, which is going to be awesome in some games, but in other games it's just something that eats a removal spell.
Sure.
So I would like to see, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth playing with enough, low quality Goblins to make Pile Driver as powerful as possible? Or are you better off with just playing with, your Zergos and Fire Drinker Satyrs of the world and playing that sort of aggressive style?
Your normal cards that we're all used to.
Right. That's what I want to know.
Well, I think someone's going to find out. Again, I remember the Open in Baltimore a couple weeks ago where Bobby Birmingham, with that Goblins deck, pre-Pile Driver, really crushing the competition.
Exactly.
So you have to imagine if he was able to do that pre-Pile Driver, Pile Driver's got to be an upgrade over something he was playing.
And the only tribal payout in that deck was really Obelisk of Urge.
Yep.
And you can play that in your Goblin list now if you want to, on top of Pile Driver.
Yeah, that's hard to pass up. It just feels like it's so obvious.
Yes.
With all the cards that are legal and the cards from Magic Origins, it's like, okay, well, there's definitely a deck here. Now, it's unclear how good that deck is and how you're supposed to build it, but it feels very obvious that there's a deck there.
Not only are there a lot of Goblins to choose from, but Frenzied Goblin and Goblin Heel Cutter, and there's another Goblin from Magic Origins, that name is escaping me right now, but that comes into play, make something with power 2 or less unblockable this turn.
The Subterranean Scout.
Those 3 cards have such a natural synergy with Goblin Pile Driver that it just feels like there should be a deck there.
Yeah. The Goblin Glory Chaser, it's unclear how good that is, but it does have creature-type Goblin. So, again, I'm with you. I really am interested to see where that is. For me, I want to see Jace. Mm-hmm. That's all I want to see. Because that's a card where the camps are so split on how good that card is that I really want to see it in action.
I'm sure against these mid-range to control strategies like the type that Ken's playing, Jace is very, very potent.
It would seem that way.
Merfolk Looter is typically good against these kind of decks, and flipping over and becoming a little Snapcaster Mage seems very good as well.
We're underway here in game number 2. Temple of Deceit here for Ketter. Ivey with a Sandsep Citadel. Looks like it might be time for a discard spell. Nope, a Warden of the first tree instead. Another Citadel and a passing of the turn back to Ketter. Ketter will take a draw here. There's Llanowar Waste. There's green mana here for Kent. And a Den Protector face up, ready to block.
Mm-hmm.
Ivey will take a draw.
Don't see this a whole lot, but Kent may have nothing to put in his graveyard and also just might need to block.
Yeah. His mana might be tied up for the next couple of turns, too.
Especially if he has a second copy of Den Protector. Block with the first one, slow the game down a little bit, gives you the time to get the second one. Second one gets back the first one.
Whammy.
Ooh.
Looking to trade, too. Warden of the first tree going to run into Den Protector. Den Protector is going to get exiled because of Anafenza, so that's a conscious decision there by Ivey to make that trade.
I suppose she has the option of just waiting one more turn.
Yep.
Then being able to attack and threaten a pump and get a counter on it.
We will see why that Den Protector is not exiled here. There we go.
Yep.
There's a little bit of conversation. What if Foothills does get sacrificed there by Ketter? Gets a basic forest, and now a Death Mist Raptor. Ivey will draw. Siege Rhino is what she's found. Does she have land number 4 to play the Rhino is the question. Looks like he might be going back to the Warden of the first tree. First things first, here comes Anafenza. There's a Valorous stance.
Yeah. And I think the question now is, did Ken actually block? Because it looked like he was making a move to block. And Brenna very quickly cast the Valorous stance.
Yep.
And now the question is, did Ken actually formally declare a block?
And that's why you see the shoulder shrug. And it doesn't look like he did. It looks like it was maybe a little hasty on Ivey's side because the Death Mist Raptor is obviously still on the battlefield. Now there's a Hunt the Hunter, so it's gone, and it's exiled too because of Anafenza, so that's not coming back. So we'll make sure that Kent's Graveyard is in order there. Bit of an awkward exchange on that turn. There's a Morph. Could be a Den Protector. Could also be a Death Mist Raptor.
Because, you know, it looks like Ken was about to go to block, and also strategically, that just looks like a spot where Kent's definitely blocking.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity to get Anafenza off the table is very valuable for his deck.
You also just might want to say, I just want to get the trick out of your hand.
And also save himself 4 damage. I mean, the block's almost certainly happening, but you have to wait.
There's a Warden. That's the follow-up, pass the turn back. Ketter with a few lands in hand, land over waste, a mountain among them.
Anafenza is all sorts of trouble for his deck. A lot of the synergies don't hold up against that card.
Here come the beatdowns. There's a counter. The Morph is Den Protector. It's going to get backwooded Foothills. Not all that exciting. Some damage will be dealt here. Ivey pretty far ahead in this game. What's the follow-up? A Siege Rhino? Yeah, very far ahead now, because even Languish isn't going to close the door.
Exactly. And Siege Rhino is very good here as the last piece of protection she needs.
Brenna Ivey going to win game number 2 over Kent Ketter. Abzan Aggro and Green-Black Dragons going to get ready for game number 3. Not a lot of new cards in these particular decks, but they're still quite powerful decks.
Yep. And Languish potentially changes this matchup quite a bit.
I do think this is going to be kind of a... Languish is going to be this kind of card that has a real interesting ebb and flow on the format. If we start moving our way into 4 Languish decks, Abzan Aggro, maybe low to the ground aggressive decks, those are probably going to go away. But if we start seeing 2-2 splits or in the sideboard, it's perfectly reasonable to play these low to the ground aggro decks.
The question is just how much damage is done to your game 1 matchups. I mean, you know, aggressive strategies, they're used to having to play against sweepers in the post-board games, but that's post-board, not game 1.
Yep.
And it's also 4 mana instead of 5. And if you start playing against these game 1 Languishes, and I think decks like Abzan are probably going to have at least 2 copies for a little while, it's possible your matchups against these decks on the balance just become not good enough.
I think so too. And I think that's obviously a real concern.
Because I think when you're playing a lot of these aggressive decks, you're assuming your game 1 against most mid-range and control strategies are very solid. Particularly towards the end of the last standard season before Origins became legal, I felt like the metagame had so much Abzan that the decks were becoming very inbred to fight each other, and some underpowered beatdown decks were flourishing as a result. With Languish in the deck, I think those underpowered beatdown decks may not be able to hang, even against builds of Abzan that are trying to gun for other builds of Abzan game 1.
Give me an example of like an underpowered beatdown deck that you mentioned.
Like the Goblins deck, for example.
Okay, the one that Bobby did well with.
We had mono black aggro make a run in Baltimore as well.
That's true.
And that's a deck. That's a deck to me that if you're playing against Languish game 1, forget about it. That deck's not
dead.
that deck's not gonna be able to hang.
Yeah, you're so dead. And as you said, there's basically nothing you can do about that either. So you make a good point there.
And for the tribal strategies, not even Obelisk does a lot of work for you because your creatures still all get killed by Languish even with an Obelisk in play.
The pump isn't big enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
For Goblins, at least, it's all 2 toughness creatures.
Well, very quickly, as these players will be presenting, and we'll be underway here in just a second, we will talk about Ali Antrazi's token. Of course, won the Season 2 Invitational, so as a result, we see Ali with Aiden flying away.
Yes, very exciting stuff. Congratulations to Ali for winning the Season 2 Invitational. Part of his prize, this token here, and you can get this token in a variety of ways. You can sign up for any Open Series event in Season 3 or any of our 5K Premier IQs, either at your store or at our Opens on Sundays, and any sort of order from StarCityGames.com in excess of $5.
Congratulations to our Season 2 Invitational champion, Ali Antrazi. Season 3 Invitational will be here soon.
Right around the corner,
And then
end
we're
of
going
August.
Then we're going
New
to
Jersey.
Yeah. I know.
Mm-hmm.
First time, not the first time back this year for you, right? Is
Yeah, it will be.
Wow,
I've
this
not
late
been
in the
home.
year,
Yep.
jeez.
I've not been back. My schedule has not been conducive to getting back there, unfortunately, so haven't been able to do it.
That's okay. We're going to go back. There's been a lot of claims by you about the Italian food in Jersey.
Yes.
You've never taken me. You said you will,
Okay.
and you know I'm a pasta guy.
We can make that happen.
I'm a pasta guy, and yet I've never had any.
It's not like we haven't done the fine cuisine run in New Jersey yet.
Assuming that there is fine cuisine in New Jersey.
Yeah, there is. Come on.
I said assuming. I'm not saying that there isn't. I just said assuming that there is.
Italian food's very good. Bread products, bagels, things like that, they're very good.
Love a bagel.
Make that happen.
You took me to, what was that restaurant with the giant sandwich and milkshake? What was that called?
Harold's.
Yeah. Not a great start.
Well, it just depends what your expectations are. It's like Legacy. You have to know what you're signing up for, but if you know ahead of time, it's going to be a great experience.
It's like that's
you
like
just can't go in blind.
It's a bunch of novelty items. It's just gigantic and ridiculous.
Like if you had someone who was playing Magic for 3 months, let's say, and you handed them a Legacy deck and said, we're going to a Legacy tournament, and you didn't explain to them what was going to happen, they're going to have a horrible time.
They are going to have a bad
Harold's,
time.
much the same way.
Okay.
You have to have some experience.
I did go in blind.
Expectations in the right place, but
Okay.
it can be really good.
I would never wish that experience on anyone, going to a Legacy tournament as your first Magic tournament. Right. What's going on? You're dead.
I got killed on turn 1. Then I went to Harold's and got an 18-inch pastrami sandwich.
I don't ever want to do this again.
And a milkshake that was measured in gallons.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like I ever had enough information in either of these events to know what I was getting into.
Kent is going to start things off with a Temple of Malady. He's going to leave his card on top. We'll head back to Brenna. There's a Temple of Silence. Take a look at the top card. Stays on top. A Forest. A Seder Wayfinder. Top 4 cards. Temple. Now he's going to go to the grip. There's a Dragonlord Dromoka and a Deathmist Raptor there, so that's one of the things that's really nice about this deck. Seder Wayfinder, it's going to find lands for you to actually put onto the battlefield. It can find a card like Gate of the Spirit Dragon to revive the dragon that's now in the graveyard, and Deathmist Raptor, while you like to be casting on turn 3, you don't mind it being milled over.
No. And it also gives the deck time. It also saves you 3 or 4 points of damage down the road.
Here's a carry added, and there's a Temple. Take a look at the top card.
It's not one single overwhelming thing, but there's just 3 or 4 really nice pieces of the puzzle that Wayfinder interlocks with.
It's probably the best card in the deck. I would be surprised.
Definitely the best facilitator.
Yes, yeah. Really helps grease the wheels for this bad boy. Ketter going to finish his scry here. Looks like he's going to leave it on top. Go back to Ivey. Fleeceman Lion was to play last turn for Brenna. She'll take a draw here. Here's an attack for 3, and there's the block that you mentioned, saving some damage. A Death Dealer, and a passing of the turn back to Ketter. Ketter will take a draw. That is Llanowar Waste. This is a Den Protector with the ability to get back Deathmist Raptor and Dragonlord Dromoka. So Kent working his way into the mid-game very nicely, as Brenna will take a draw step.
Yeah, so far this has just been a great sequence of events here for Kent. Got a lot of mana. Life total still 20. Able to block. A top end already in hand, at least Dragonlord Atarka.
Dragonlord Dromoka in the graveyard to return, along with Deathmist Raptor that's down there too. So here's the Unmegamorph. Potentially a trade with Fleecemane Lion as well. So here's a trigger. Deathmist Raptor going to come back. Kent actually going to return Seder Wayfinder. Keep going to work here. Fleece Main Lion and Den Protector are going to trade. Death Dealer will deal 2. Ketter down to 18. Ivey going to sacrifice Windswept Teeth. Here's a Siege Rhino. She'll have to grab a Plains to cast it. So she'll go up to 21. Ketter down to 15. We'll head back Kent's way. Slightly behind on the board, but in a really good position.
Yep. Taking this slow and steady. Just needs to make his land drops from here.
Looks like he might start with the Wayfinder that he rebought. He will. Caryatid, a Foothills, a Dragonlord Dramoka, and it looks like a Temple of Deceit. Yes, all those cards are in the same deck.
Classic blue-black dual land and red-green dual land.
Yeah, it's good deck building. See, you and I, we like monocolored decks.
Yeah.
Could never do this. I want to put down on my deck list sheet at least 12 of one land.
Honestly, I don't mind decks like Kent, where it's, you know, kind of a 2-color deck with a lot of mana fixing that is spread out towards the top end, but you have a lot of time. I'm more uncomfortable playing decks like Obzone Aggro, where I need to have 3 colors of mana by turn 2. Those are the kind of decks that I stay away from typically.
Another Wayfinder. Turn over 4 more cards. Hero's Downfall, another Wayfinder. Looks like he found a Haven of the Spirit Dragon. That's the important one. You saw Wooded Foothill search up a mountain. Now what's next for Ketter? It's a Murderous Cut to take care of the Death Dealer while Ivey's tapped out. This was a good turn.
Yeah. pretty awesome.
This was a good turn.
Good for mana, good for board development, good for stabilizing the game. Good all around.
I feel like we should see Murderous Cut in more decks as a one-off probably.
If you don't have one Murderous Cut in your 75 somewhere when you're playing black decks with any way to fill up the graveyard, by which I mean creatures and spells,
yeah, normal
I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Here's Wingmate Rock. There'll be a token along with it.
I don't mind Wingmate Rock in this matchup because, you know, a lot of Kent's blocking is on the ground. The problem is once we get to this stage of the game, Kent's Dragons answer Wingmate Rock so easily.
You saw Dragonlord Tarka answer 1/2 of it. The tough part here, too, for Ivey is you can kill Dragonlord Tarka all you want with the Valor Stance or Hero's Downfall, but Kent's ability to rebuy it because of Haven of the Spirit Dragon makes it very tough to overcome. And he's got Haven of the Spirit Dragon on the battlefield. And drew a Dragonlord Atarka. So this is easier. Yep, kill that too. There's Sandsep Citadel. Here come the beatdowns from the Wayfinders. A little bit of chip damage here. Ivey going to go down to 19. 19 to 10 in Brenna's favor as she does on tap. But she is very behind on the board, and Vermaz is not going to help her catch up too much. That will be the play for the turn. The follow-up is the Fleece Main Line. Fast turn back over to Ketter. Ketter will take a draw step here. There's an attack for 8. Ivey down to 11. Haven of the Spirit Dragon. I think we might have a morphed Death Mist Raptor here. Looks like we will. That'll help bring back the other Death Mist Raptor. The minor morph game with Death Mist Raptor and Den Protector.
And almost everything, it's really easy to point to Dragonlord Atarka and say, well, that's the thing that won the game, and it's going to be the thing that attacks for lethal. But the Wayfinders here did all the heavy lifting.
I mean, you think about it. Look what Kent returned with the Den Protector early in the game. There was a Dragonlord Dramoka in the graveyard to return.
Yep.
And he said, I don't need that. Give me a Wayfinder. Let me keep doing my thing. Gonna unmegamorph Death Mist Raptor here. That'll get a counter. And I believe there's a Death Mist Raptor to bring back from the graveyard. And there is. He's gonna bring it back as a morph. Maybe start the loop here. Looks like Fleece Main Lion looking to go monstrous before blocks happen. So there's a chump block there, a Death Mist Raptor here. And we can't forget about that token that's attacking. It looks like Wayfinder's going to jump in front of that.
And this puts Ken in position to attack back for lethal.
Yep. Great spot to be in. Ketter going to untap very quickly. He will take a draw. And so long as he does the math right, and I think Ivey already notices it, that's going to get the job done. Kent Ketter's going to win this match over Brenna Ivey 2-1. Green Black Dragons will take care of Obzon Aggro. As I mentioned right at the top, not new decks really, not a lot of new content, but still both pretty potent. It just seems like a very good matchup for Ketter.
When I talked to Andrew Boswell, he's played Obzon Aggro to a lot of success, including an Open Series win in Baltimore recently. He said his strategy for